Hey, what's up, guys? It's CJ. I'm here with Mike and Richard, and we're going to bring you another episode of Superhero Sundays, where we get into WandaVision episode 4, where Wanda looks like she's starting to become a villain. And speaking of villains, we're going to get into the DC documentary Necessary Evil, which kind of dives into the mindset and the thought process of creating a supervillain for superheroes. And of course, we're going to reveal the Real Life Hero Award. So with all that being said, roll the intro. So we've been following WandaVision for the last couple of episodes, and giving our opinions and thoughts. And episode 4, man, it kind of brought everything together. You kind of saw what's really going on behind the scenes, and it's just really tying things together so you can have a full understanding of what's going on in this little bubble that Wanda and Vision are in. But I really liked episode 4. It was the introduction to new characters. Not really new characters, they're characters from other Marvel movies, and they're being introduced into WandaVision. What did you guys think about episode 4? I'll start with Mike. What you think about episode 4 of WandaVision?
Well, just want to say, if we go back to when we talked about episode 1 and 2, there's a clip there where I say exactly what just happened on the episode. So,
he did.
I mean, check
Mike
it,
was right.
Drop it. That superimposed on here. But yes, episode 4 was an episode where it started off brilliant. The way that they showed the chaos of the blip coming back was
so good.
It gave me the vibes of, if you remember, you guys watched The Walking Dead, the very first episode of The Walking Dead, where the sheriff woke up and he was just chaos because he didn't know what was going on in the hospital. That's basically the same kind of scenario, but instead of having nobody in the hospital, you have just random chaos of people blipping back.
Yeah.
For 5 years, nobody knowing what's going on, and you get caught up with Monica Rambeau, Geraldine, on how she her mother just had surgery to remove cancer, everything went well, and then all of a sudden she's back and she gets the news that her mom's been dead for 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years, and 2 years after she, disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So it is great. The way that they showed it, the chaos, how everything's going on in the world, no real superheroes, just how everything's just absolute chaos.
Yeah, that scene was great. It was a creepy scene, actually. I didn't know what was actually happening when they, first showed her sitting in a chair, but like she's coming back. I was like, what? Is she like a demon or something? I didn't know what was going on. And then it started making sense that she ran into the hallway and people were running around, and she runs into a guy. He's like, do you have a phone? I need to call my wife, and you started understanding, like, man, this is people coming back from being blipped from what Thanos did.
Yeah, because they're coming back from exactly where they left off at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was amazing opening scene. What about you, Richard? What'd you think of episode 4?
It was really good, because now you're starting to get some of the pieces together, especially some things from episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, and it's slowly starting to come together. And now you're starting to get a better idea of the character Geraldine, and now episode 4 kind of shows you the story of how who she really is, how she ended up in Wanda's reality, mm-hmm. and other pieces that we were questioning, like some of the other Easter eggs, are now starting to come to light. Yeah. So it's definitely it's leaving me wanting more. That's for sure.
Definitely. And Mike, so is Monica Rambeau, she's the daughter of the one captain that was in Captain Marvel?
Yes,
is that right?
The Captain Marvel's like best friend. She's the one that flew the spaceship at the end of the movie into space against the Krulls, or looking for that ship. And she's actually apparently the person that helped start SWORD. Kind of like Peggy was with S.H.I.E.L.D. She was one of the instrumental parts of creating that. As you heard, the guy Taylor, guy who's the new director, said that the policies in place were placed by Monica's mother.
Yeah. And actually, you kind of see some of the background of some of the other characters too, as they reveal like some of the neighbors actually have real names and real identities outside of that bubble, right?
They showed their driver's license and that stuff. But if you actually look real careful, there's Agnes's pictures up there, but no driver's license.
That means
that they couldn't find a driver's license with her name on there, so they don't. Or when they were using that facial recognition, they couldn't find her in the database. So that means that should point to she isn't really probably part of this world, or whatever it is that she is, whether she's a witch or a demon or whatever that they end up doing, because I don't generally follow the comic books exactly. But if you look up there, Agnes's photo is there with a description of everything, but no actual driver's license, New Jersey driver's license like everybody else's.
Wow, yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, and, they identified everyone so far except for Agnes, which definitely got me puzzled too as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it identified, but John Woo identified where he's from. And where's he from, Mike?
I totally heard of it.
He's from good old Baketown, Bakersfield.
He's from California. Jimmy Woo, the FBI agent. But one of the greatest things that everybody's talking about is the fact that he actually got his little trick down that he tried to learn in Ant-Man.
The card trick?
Yeah, the close-up magic trick. Do you remember in Ant-Man and Wasp when Paul Rudd or Ant-Man did that? He was really amazed, and he asked him, "How'd you do it?" And he's like, "Do what?" And he goes, "The magic trick." And then later on, you see him at his desk, watching YouTube videos to learn how to do it. And then you see him here when you see him, Jimmy Woo from FBI, and he does a little magic trick. He does it like a professional, and everybody's like, "Oh, he finally did it. He finally got it." So,
dude, that's funny. I did not catch on to that.
Me either.
Really? I didn't catch on to
that.
I saw Ant-Man 4 years ago. Haven't seen it since, so I don't remember that part.
Yeah. So it's one of the things that it says that the people on Reddit were talking about how it's the greatest character arc ever written, because he started off not knowing how to do it, and then now he does it like nothing.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It's a good callback, as you saw the other characters from the other movies, like Darcy and Jimmy Woo and Monica Rambeau and those type of people. It's a good callback from, bringing over something from one of the other movies.
Yeah, Darcy was funny too. She had some good lines, and
she's no longer an intern; she's actual doctor now.
She's an actual doctor, yeah.
Yeah, so she's actually, instead of like before, she didn't know anything in the Thor movies. Now she's an actual like full-on doctor, knows how to run her own equipment. She does all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And she's the one that figured everything out. CMBR or CMB.
But she never got her cup of coffee.
That is true. And I am a lover of coffee, and I was really disappointed in that she didn't get her cup of coffee.
I was sad for her.
Yeah, she was the only one there to do anything, to figure anything out. Didn't get her cup of coffee.
Didn't get her coffee. Yeah, she did a lot of work that helped sort out, finding or figuring out that it's a television show, and she was like intrigued with the show. And she was like following along, and
she was
figuring out what's going on. Yes, exactly. She was invested in it. But yeah, she was from Thor, right? And so I don't know. I wonder what her role is going to be. Is it going to grow within Sword or what? Because she doesn't work for Sword, right? She works. She's not even in FBI either, right?
Yeah, she's just a subcontracted person that they brought in because they don't know. When you first saw her, she asked everybody what their field is. And then she said, well, we have a car full of clowns, meaning that they're everywhere. Like the Sword doesn't know what's going on, so they got specialists from all different kinds of fields, from AI, from astrophysics to chemical engineer, that sort of thing. And I think how the shows, she talked about how CMB, that cosmic radiation or whatever, that it's gonna put things in place where it's like, oh, this is all has to do with the cube, the cosmic radiation from the Big Bang, because they talked about it. And if you remember from Doctor Strange, Wong said that the Big Bang is the thing that started and hurtled the 6 Infinity Stones, or the 5 Infinity Stones, whatever, into existence and moved them onto the plane of the universe. So
yeah,
it all ties in everything.
Yeah, and speaking of Doctor Strange, is going to play a part in this also, because like I said, multiverse, and it's kind of going to be like a horror theme to the movie, and so I think Wanda is going to, I don't know, man, I'm excited to see what's going to happen, but I think some like horror themed stuff is going to happen as we move on and progress throughout the show.
What's more horror than the devil himself?
Exactly, and that's who I think that's who I think the I guess the supervillain is going to be. What's his name? Mephisto. Yeah. But I mean, Sword. I think if Mephisto is kind of operating everything, Sword is just as confused as us, because they're just out on the outside, just observing everything. They don't know what is going on. They're just looking and observing.
They're trying to get in. They're trying to
Exactly.
get in to find out what's going on, and it's not working for them.
And if you remember on the wall, Agent Wu was writing a whole bunch of things down, asking, is this time and space? Is this our reality? Is Vision alive? Like basically following along, asking the questions that the viewers are asking, like, what is this? Like, is he actually still alive? They kind of answer the question later on, and then on the left-hand side, one of the things that you kind of get cut off there, it says like who could be behind this, and it says on their scrolls, which are the people from Captain Marvel's movie, the people that can change the way they look.
Yeah.
So he put it on there as a possible people behind this. So that shows a couple of things. One, that people or Sword or the FBI or somebody still thinks that they're bad, because in the movie Captain Marvel, they were kind of like good.
Yeah. Actually,
the good guys. In the comic books, they're not really good guys, but they made them like the good guys in Captain Marvel. So the fact that that Sword or Shield or whoever it is, the FBI thinks that they might be behind it, they still don't trust them.
Yeah.
So it could be a lot of implications. We don't know. One of the things that I will say though is that when Monica Rambeau was talking to Taylor, the new director, whatever his name is, Director Wayward, how they asked about the number of test pilots, to go to space and stuff, that she said that, or he said that half of them got blipped and the other half are losing confidence. I really think that is going to be the way that they bring in the Fantastic Four.
Wow.
Because the Fantastic Four, if you don't remember, they go to space. So, and we know that they're going to make a Fantastic Four movie in the near future. So what better way to bring in new people to go to space for them? Sword, because they handle stuff out in the cosmic threats and that sort of thing. You send out somebody like the Fantastic Four, which starts their whole origin story where they're out there, cosmic radiation happens, they all get their powers, blah blah blah, and they come back and that sort of thing. So it'll be a nice tie-in if that's, nobody knows, or not yet, but that'd be a good tie-in.
It could be. Like I said, Wanda is like start of phase 4, so it's like it's the launching or the platform that everything's going to branch off of. And so if you can bring in Fantastic Four, you bring in X-Men, like all that from this one show, because mutants are tied into this with Wanda. And like I said, space is tied into this, so everything can get branched off of this one show. So the show is vital. It's a crucial show. So I don't know what they can do for episode 5, but like I said, this episode was crazy, and it just brought more understanding about what's really going on.
I still have a lot of questions though, or some questions.
Let's talk about it. Let's go.
What kind of questions you got, Richard?
Well, so far, like one thing I'm still wondering, the beekeeper guy, like what happened to that guy? Right. So that's like one thing, when they sent Monica Rambeau to go meet up with Agent Wu, they said it was a missing persons case. Who's the missing person?
I think the missing person is Ralph, which is Agnes's husband.
Really?
Yeah, because she keeps mentioning a husband.
Yeah, and you never see him.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It might be him, or it might be. There's some people talking that the missing person is actually the body of Vision. But that's a stretch too. But I mean, we don't know. We don't know who this missing person is. Not only is he missing, but now all his associates, family, friends, don't even know who he is. Like, not that they haven't seen him, they lost all memory of him. So,
yeah, that's the thing too. Is like when they first got to was it Westview? When they first got to Westview, the cops were like, "We don't even know about this town in New Jersey. We're from Eastview." Yeah, so they're like, "We don't even know what you're talking about." And then, that's when
there's a big old sign that says Westview. Welcome to Westview.
Right behind you. It's like, what are you talking about? It doesn't exist. And then that's when they started figuring out that something strange is really going on. There's I guess a force field there, in which Mike was right when we talked about in episode 1 and 2 of the show about whatever enters that blip or that little realm, it turns or it gets altered or changes to fit into that reality. And so, like Richard mentioned, the beekeeper, he was actually a sword person with a suit on, and then he goes through that force field and he turns into a beekeeper. And like Richard said, I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if Wanda killed him or because you don't know what happened to him. He just reminded time, and that was it, and then he was gone. So what happened to him? I hope nothing bad happened to him, but it doesn't look good, bro.
You did nothing wrong, man.
Right. Also, that little helicopter wasn't a helicopter; it was like a drone.
It was a drone.
Same colors, but it was like a future looking drone, and then it turned into an old looking toy helicopter. A lot of crazy things, but it was cool to how they showed what actually happened behind the scenes and made things start making sense. What other questions you have, Richard?
How, as invested as they were, remember Dr. Lewis was saying, "Oh, I'm invested," and as she was watching, she turns it off right before the show went on commercial, and I'm like, "Why did you do that? That's a key thing. Like, come on, bro."
See, you don't know if they actually see the commercials.
Well, yeah, because they never referenced it, but I mean,
you wanted to see
it looked like she wasn't watching.
Yeah, and speaking of watching, it's that in the first episode, or the first 2 episodes, when I guess it was episode 1, when at the end it showed that person who was watching the show and flipped the book.
It was
her. So that was pretty cool. It's still the writing, MCU writers, man, they so well thought out, so great.
They didn't want to leave us completely clueless, asking all these questions. So they gave us an episode where they're all like, there it is.
Now it makes sense.
Some kind of satisfaction. Like, okay, yeah.
Now that makes sense. Yeah, exactly.
And then they're going to leave us with a question that's going to get answered like in something else, like one of the branch offs.
One of the big things that kind of scared everybody was the quick glance to Vision, and it was dead Vision.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Which kind of shows that he actually, he's not alive. He's dead. And
That
so,
is a dead body, but she's got it prancing around looking like it's alive.
man, it was kind of creepy too. And he turned around, yeah, big hole in his head. That was crazy.
It just goes back to what I remember what you were saying a couple weeks ago, Calvin. Is that you kind of feel like maybe Wanda has something. We now know that she's like in control of this reality, but the reason is why we're all kind of trying to tie it to Mephisto. And kind of going back to what you said, maybe she made like a deal with the devil kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. So now she's gonna give him 2 kids, and he's helping her help this reality kind of thing so that she can still have vision in her life.
Yeah. That's what I really truly think is what's going on. And it's unfortunate because there's going to be consequences to everything that's going on, and we don't know what that's going to bring, and what's going to come about from that. But I really think she made a deal just to have that time with Vision, bring him back, have a family, which is great. But there's going to be some bad things are going to happen from everything, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen. I don't know if episode 5 is going to touch on that, because episode 4 ended with Captain Rambo talking about Wanda's the one. Wanda is the one doing everything. And so now what are they going to do with episode 5? I don't know. But I think they're going to have to start addressing of what's going on there, and that Wanda is kind of the villain, so to speak. She's the one controlling everything. She's the one that's doing this.
Yeah, I think in episode 5 and probably 6, because if you remember at the end of this episode, you kind of see Vision kind of questioning, but questioning, not really saying anything, but you can see in his face where she's like, "What do we watch now?" And then he kind of like looked around like something's off.
Yeah,
like he's confused or something.
Yeah, he's confused, like kind of like what's going on type of thing, but kind of like still going along with it. I think episode 5 is going to be more of Vision starting to prod around, asking questions, figuring things out, and her not really knowing what's going on and constantly starting to lose grip on reality, because things are going to start happening where she doesn't have control over.
Right, because remember he was like, "Are you sure you want to stay here?
Mm-hmm.
We could go somewhere else." He's indicating that. She's like, "No."
This is our home, basically.
This is our home.
We're here. We're gonna have to stay here. And I mean, that's you kind of sympathize with her, because she went through so much with her past, all the trauma she went through, and she just truly wants to be with Vision, the love of her life, and she wanted the family with them, but she never got that chance. So this was kind of her chance to have that, to bring that to reality. And so it's like, is she really a villain? Is she really wrong for doing that? Or, can you really sympathize with her and see what she did and why she did it? And, would you do that yourself? That's kind of really cool. Something that we watched over the weekend, a movie or a documentary called Necessary Evil. I think it was a great documentary, but it's about villains, and the thought process behind creating villains, and the reason why and their background story, and because you have to have a good villain to actually have a good hero, because heroes need a villain, because I think villains bring out the best in them. And so, but still, you look at the background stories of some villains, and you kind of sympathize with them. You see like why they're doing what they're doing. What changed them, what triggered them to be the person that they are today. And so it's a great documentary. It's called Necessary Evil. What'd you think of that documentary, Mike and Richard? What'd you guys think of it? Did you guys like it?
I really enjoyed that documentary, because it really gives you a new kind of like point of view of villains. Because one of the main things that I always take away from that documentary, I've seen it a couple of times, is the way that they said, in the point of view of the hero, of course the villain is the villain, but if you actually look at it the point of view of the villain, he's the hero and the hero's the villain. That's why you need a good villain to be almost the opposite of your hero, because he is going to be the polar opposite of what the hero stands for, but also in some cases, which we'll go into, is that the villain is not really a villain. He's just seeing things a little bit differently than your hero.
Yeah. That's so good. What do you think, Richard? What do you think about Necessary Evil?
Well, what I really liked about it was it really gives you an in-depth look on the process and the mentality and the psychosis of developing a good villain. As Mike was saying, the villains, they talk about the villain as if maybe they could be the good guy with a twist, something like that. And it's just kind of eye-opening because it's not, they're not just creating a villain as someone who just comes in and robs a store. It's someone who's coming in and take a known hero, and they're gonna push that hero to the edge, to the brink of breaking that hero past his or her morals, I guess you can say. It really is very intriguing in how it's kind of like defending the villains, where they really are the reason why the hero exists.
Exactly.
It's kind of cool.
They asked a good question, that documentary, like who came first, the hero then the villain emerged, or was it the villain and then the hero emerged? And I kind of think that you have the evil to come first, because you need somebody that kind of wants to stand up to what's going on in their city or their nation or whatever. And so that kind of, like I said, brings the best out of that person, and it compels that person to want to stand up to the evil or the supervillain. But they asked some really good questions, and with Wanda, you kind of want to say, like, is she wrong for doing this? Is she an evil person? Is she bad for doing what she's doing, or is what she went through so traumatizing that it just drove her to this point? It pushed her over the edge. And that's kind of what, like I said, MCU, their writers are always on point, and how they develop their characters. And so, I don't know if Wanda's going to be kind of something like a villain and then goes back to being, someone who's good in the future. I don't know what the future's going to bring for her. But that documentary was great. If you haven't seen it, it's on HBO Max. It's called Necessary Evil. But it kind of had me thinking about, who are some villains that I kind of, not say admire, but who I find, really interesting. And I asked Mike and Richard to the same thing. Richard, actually, no, I'll start with Mike. Mike, who's a villain that you kind of find it intriguing?
There's tons of villains that you really use, that are iconic, that symbolize different things. But the villain, well, again, I chose this person because you really can't just say that he's a villain, because if you really look at the core of this person, he's just doing something for his people because of being oppressed, or people being bigots, and really pushing this the mutants pretty much to segregation, that sort of thing. And so the villain that I chose was Magneto.
Nice.
Magneto, who ties in with Wanda and everything as being her father. That Magneto is really, to his core, really just thinking about his people. He is the opposite of, I guess, Professor Xavier, because Professor Xavier is really going after the same thing that Magneto wants, but in a different light.
Exactly. Yeah.
Professor X is really thinking about diplomacy, talking things out. Even to some points in certain movies, he's actually doing things to his own people to suppress them, to make sure for the greater good of the people. When you see Magneto, he takes it, well, society is oppressing us, society is doing this to us, society is doing that to us, all of this violence. So we need to strike violence with violence. And one of the great things that I enjoyed is a graphic novel called God Loves, Man Kills. It really strikes in and shows you how mutants were pretty much treated almost identical to how African Americans were treated for the longest time, segregated, pushed, bullied. And you have these two iconic people that we had in society and, you know, American culture, American history, in Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. And Professor X is basically, not originally, but later on, you can see the comparisons of Martin Luther King and Professor Xavier, always using diplomacy, always being that great voice of having a dream of having, you know, everybody working together, even using his mutants for the greater good. Even though society is doing this, he's doing something to save society as a whole. And then you have somebody like Magneto, who sees everything as an act of war. He wants to just put the same type of violence, you know, eye for an eye type of thing. But he's doing it all for his people. He's not doing it because he's like an evil person that wants to murder a bunch of people. He wants to make sure that his people get treated the same. In the comic books, he comes up with an island where he takes all the mutants and he calls it his utopia, where, you know, all mutants are only mutants. See, only mutants, not that they are integrated with regular society, but they're just mutants being treated by other mutants. So
yeah,
I really love how there's a line or an interview question that was asked from Stan Lee himself, where he said that, I do not think of Magneto as a bad guy. He's just trying to strike back at the people who were so bigoted and racist. He was trying to defend mutants and because society was not treating them fairly, he decided to teach society a lesson. Of course, he went about it in a way where he became dangerous as a person, but his whole mindset is really to protect his people.
Exactly.
I thought that him would be a great villain as like necessary evil, where he might be doing things not in the best way, but he's doing it from a good light.
Yeah, this, you can compare Magneto to Malcolm X. This is how Malcolm X started the Black Panthers. You know, they didn't develop because of as revenge or something that was from evil point of view. It was because they wanted to defend their communities. Mm-hmm. And same thing with Magneto. He just wants to defend his people, defend the mutants, because they're bullied, and so he wants to stand up to the bully. And like Mike said, he might go about it the wrong way, a more unethical way or immoral way, but his intentions are good. And just like Professor Xavier, they both want the same end goal, but they're going about it. Their ideologies are different, and they bump heads. But Magneto, another iconic villain, great choice. Richard, who is your villain?
Well, my villain, okay, I'm not going to go as in-depth as Mike did, because that is pretty deep. But
that's Mike's brain there, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome material. I'm gonna give you two. I'm gonna give you like my ultimate favorite, and then like one fun one just to throw out there as for its and giggles. So my one of my favorite villains that I like love is Darth Vader, right? I mean, just the character of Darth Vader in general. If you follow the entire saga from when he was a child to how he dies, he's the prodigal son, right? He was the chosen one supposedly, and during his upbringing, he gets manipulated by a senator. Ultimately, he turns to the dark side and becomes one of the greatest
iconic villains of all time, basically.
Yeah. One of the strongest Dark Lords, that we know of. The character of how he looks is, I've always loved. The shape of the helmet that he wears, it has that ancient samurai look to it. He's half, not half, but a lot of his body parts are robotic because of the battles of fighting other Jedis when he, after he turned, losing limbs and body parts along the way and getting him fixed. This is kind of weak, but whatever. His lightsaber is awesome. I love the color red. Red is my favorite color. If you look at my background, I chose red. If you look at my sports teams, all their colors are red. My car is red. So, so I just kind of tied that into my life. But
speaking of how he looks, I mean, I think Mike said this the other day in a conversation, you don't even have to be a Star Wars fan to know who Darth Vader is. You could just, show his helmet and people be like, Darth Vader. I know that guy, he's bad.
Yeah, you just either look at his helmet, or you don't even you don't even have to look at him. You just have to hear his voice. Yeah. And you already know. Because, I mean, he, like you said, he's one of the most iconic villains now in cinematography history. Has one of the most ultimate lines, and I am your father. Join me. It's our destiny. It's so iconic. So I love Vader. And that's one of and my fun one. One of my favorite movies is called Mystery Men. It's kind of a spoof on superheroes.
Great movie. Right?
Thank you, Mike. And the villain in that movie his name is Casanova Frankenstein, and he's not very special or anything, but he's just a very flamboyant, ultimate villain for the superhero in that movie, and it's a good action comedy, and if you get the time, you guys gotta watch it. It's hilarious.
I think I saw that movie one time. When it first came out, I saw it once and I haven't seen it since. I kind of forgot everything about that movie, Mystery Men. But no, those are good choices, man. Me, I chose. I was going to choose two, but the first one I was going to choose was actually the Riddler. I was going to go with the Riddler because in that documentary they were talking about how he's a villain that kind of self-sabotages himself. He literally leaves clues about what he's done for Batman to look at and try to figure out. But again, that just goes along with the psychology behind villains. And I think it was Penguin that said, what's the point of doing the perfect crime if no one knows that you did it? So it's kind of like Riddler. He wants you to know that he did it, but he wants you to figure it out. And he's going to leave clues for you. And was it Batman Returns that he was in, or Batman and Robin?
Batman and Robin.
He was in Batman and Robin, and the cast of Jim Carrey for him was great. I love Jim Carrey. I thought he played him well.
I thought that was a perfect fit, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. So I was going to pick him and go through a little bit of his background, but I decided to actually go with actually a movie that's going to come out soon with The Rock. He's going to play Black Adam, and so I was kind of intrigued with Black Adam. I didn't really know too much about his background story. What was he about? Why is he so evil? And I actually looked up a little bit about his background, and I'm really excited about what DC can do with this movie. Hopefully they do it the right way. I like The Rock. The Rock is a great actor. He's humble guy and funny, but hopefully they do it the right way. But Black Adam, he wasn't always bad. He's actually a person that you can look at and say, you can argue, is he really a villain, or is he a hero or an anti-hero? Somebody who can save the day, but they might do it in a unethical or immoral way. But he actually has two origin stories. So the first one was he's from Egypt, And, he got his powers from the wizard Shazam. But in the new movie, or in the new origin story, they kind of mixed that up. He's not from Egypt anymore. And this is, I think, what they're going to go with in the movie with The Rock. So his origin story for the movie is that he's from a northern African nation. And he kind of impressed Shazam the wizard with his good deeds. And Shazam gave him his powers. And so he was kind of like the Superman of his African nation. And he was, a hero. He was taking care of his nation and his people. And he had a wife and kids. And then one day, the nation got attacked by this villain named, I think, Acton. And the nation got actually conquered. And in that struggle of him fighting against that supervillain, his wife and his child, they died. They were killed. And that just put him over the edge. That just really traumatized him. And he was so enraged with anger that it turned him into Black Adam. So kind of like Wanda, Wanda went through so much tragedy, so much trauma, that she's changed. And so Black Adam, he changed, and he actually killed the supervillain that took over his nation. He murdered him, he killed him. And then he went to go back to his nation to take it over, to take control. And he wasn't going to stop at anything, at all costs. He was going to kill whoever was in his way. He was going to do whatever it takes to take over his nation or to get back his nation. And Shazam the wizard didn't agree with the way that he was going about to, get revenge. And so he stripped him of his powers. And so from there, how he got his powers back and everything, you have to read the comics. But that's the origin story that the movie Black Adam is going to go with The Rock. And I cannot wait for that to come out. And I believe it's supposed to come out this year, but with COVID and how things are going on, that might get pushed back. And I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. But super excited for that movie to come out. But again, is he a villain? I don't know. Is he an anti-hero? Definitely. So yeah, but talking about villains and anti-heroes and the reason why people turn bad, in our world and in real life, we have people who are going through things, people are going through tragedy, people who are fighting against villains, and the villain we have right now is COVID. And we have people who are out there on the front lines fighting and helping people through these tough times. And one of those fighters is someone named Tracy. Tracy Bingham is actually my cousin. She is a patient care tech in Sacramento. She says she was influenced by nurses when she was a kid during the time she was at the hospitals visiting her dad who was battling cancer. That's where she fell in love with the idea of working and helping people. She knew she wanted to grow up to be someone who impacted people's lives. She actually started working in the medical field in North Dakota for 2 years, working with disabled adults, and then went into working in hospitals in 2015. She's a single mother of a 13-year-old son, and she is truly a superwoman, and I am so proud of her. So Tracy will be receiving a gift card, a ID badge holder with a comic hero on it, and a Royal Zealous drawstring bag. So Tracy, thank you for what you're doing. Congrats for being the Real Life Hero Award winner, and we truly appreciate what you're doing. Continue to inspire others, continue to bring positivity to everybody around you, continue to work hard. Thank you. And that concludes another episode of Superhero Sundays. Tune in next week where we get into more superhero movies and TV shows. And of course, we're going to bring you another winner of the Real Life Hero Award. So thank you guys. God bless. Good night.